only thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You find your way to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. Visit us online at wallbuilders.com and also wallbuilderslive.com. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton. We're looking at things from both a biblical and a historical point of view. And, of course, it's that time of the year, election time, and we are talking about how to look at that from a biblical and historical point of view and how we as individuals can be engaged in the process. Even if we're pastors, David, we can be involved in this process.
Well, if you look at it from a biblical and historical view, those are the guys who should particularly be engaged, be engaged.
Yeah.
Because back in the American Revolution, that was the essence of so much of the leadership that went on. When the Continental Congress wanted to put out news bulletins, they didn't send it to the newspapers, they sent it to the pastors and said, will you read this in your congregation? You have all sorts of sermons that we have posted online, sermons preached in front of John Hancock and Sam Adams, the entire legislature of Massachusetts, sermons preached in front of the entire legislature of Connecticut or New Hampshire or Virginia or wherever. For well over a century, it was common to have sermons to start legislative sessions in those states and colonies. And so as you look back, pastors were very involved, a number of pastors involved in the American Revolution on the military side, on the political side, a number of the state constitutions written by pastors, a number of pastors involved in the Bill of Rights that was added in the Constitution. I mean, just so many areas. So it's a no-brainer historically. It's also a no-brainer biblically. I mean, quite frankly, what people fail to understand today about biblical history is that prophets were part of the political cabinet. That was a king's advisor. That's where they're always hanging out with kings and around kings and giving kings counsel. And if you're Elijah, you're giving king counsel on foreign affairs. You're giving counsel on domestic affairs. You're giving counsel on all sorts of stuff. Just so much biblical, historical stuff there on that aspect of spiritual leaders. Now, what's happened is in the last 30 to 40 years, we've convinced ourselves and let ourselves be convinced that we shouldn't be involved in this stuff. But I was recently at with a friend. You and I have a mutual friend, and he was telling me about something that happened at a pastor's conference. And at this pastor's conference, there was about 170, 180 pastors there. And as they were talking about things, there was a presentation made on the historical role of pastors and the biblical role of pastors, and challenging pastors, quit defining yourself into this little narrow 2-foot square box behind your pulpit. Get involved in the community. Get involved outside of things. Get involved in political affairs because that's part of your community. You have that right as a citizen. You have a constitutional right. And so one particular pastor went back home, and, you know, his thing was, hell, I don't know. That's not my role. I'm not in the civil affairs, and it's not my responsibility. I've got the church, but he was really challenged by what he heard, so he decided to get involved. And as my friend told me, he got a call from this pastor, and the pastor told about how they went to a particular campaign meeting and got involved and asked some questions and found some information, and then worked to organize other pastors in the community to vote and support for the good guys that held those right values of life and marriage, etc. And what a difference it made. And just because this pastor decided to get a little bit outside his comfort zone, completely turned the direction of the election in that city. Stuff that was not known to the other voters suddenly became known. So it was really a fun story when this pastor decided to pick up the mantle. And that really is one of the key things that we have to learn. And quite frankly, one of the problems we have with America today is our focus as individuals on national news stories and national media. Because quite frankly, Rick, you and I look at stuff and, you know, there's really nothing you and I can do about the fact that the Supreme Court by a 5-4 decision has said gay marriage is in. I mean, there's nothing you and I can do about that. We can't overturn the court decision. We look at Harry Reid, and he won't pick up those 300 bills passed by the House, and there's nothing you and I can do about that. And we look at President Obama, and he's got a pen and a phone, and he issues executive orders doing all sorts of stuff. We can't stop that. And so what happens is we have a tendency as individuals to look at what's happening at the national level and feel paralyzed as a result of it. And the right thing to do is exactly what was done to this pastor. And this, we have city elections here. We're electing our county judge, our county legislators, we're electing our mayors and our city councilmen, we're electing the school board, we're electing the local folks. I can help there. And so rather than looking at national level, he looked at the local level. He got involved. He took a little bit of and I mean a little leadership. It was a little out of his comfort zone. It wasn't anything that was, really flamboyant. And that completely turned the direction of that community. And that's the kind of stuff that the American Revolution was based on. I mean, quite frankly, the guys at Lexington and Concord didn't send a runner to George Washington saying, hey, Mr. Washington, is it okay if we defend our town? I mean, they got up and did it. And the American Revolution was not centralized in the sense of we got to get permission from somebody up top. National level's got to tell us what to do. We don't know what to do individually. Everybody just went out and took care of their own community. And that's what this is such a cool story with. So this Pastor Day, it's going to be a fun story to hear what he did in his own. And we're talking just a matter of a few weeks ago this happened. So this is a brand new story.
Yeah, and it might be not only a great story and good news, and we can see that result. Hopefully, it'll spur on some others and inspire some others around the country to do the exact same thing, because it's exactly like what you were just saying. You sometimes feel paralyzed thinking about all the national stuff, and I can't ever get through to those folks or whatever. It's just out of my reach, which in reality it's not. I mean, if we'll get involved, we can get good senators, get congressmen, all that. But let's just assume for a minute you bought into that. Well, hey, that local city council or DA or county judge or commissioner, whatever, that race is definitely something you can have a huge impact on. You can be the one person that makes all the difference, and that's what this guy did. He was the one that made the difference in these local races. So let's hope it inspires others to understand that and believe that and make that happen in their community. Back in a moment with that pastor that made that difference, Jake Kinnamon from Camden, Arkansas. Stay with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Since the Ten Commandments have formed the basis of civil law in the Western world for over 2,000 years, an individual is more likely to find a copy of them in a government building rather than a religious one. Yet amazingly, numerous rulings over recent years now make it unconstitutional to display the commandments in many public arenas. Consider what Founding Father John Adams said about this. He declared, "The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, anarchy and tyranny commence. If 'thou shalt not covet' and 'thou shalt not steal' were not commandments of heaven, they must be made inviolable precepts in every society before it can be civilized or made free." John Adams believed that no society could remain civilized if separated from the Ten Commandments.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks so much for joining us today. You can visit online at wallbuilderslive.com and wallbuilders.com. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest today, Pastor Jake Kinnamon. He's out in Arkansas, in Camden, Arkansas, a pastor there that's actually had a candidate forum and invited candidates to come to the church. They've done endorsements, had all kinds of cool involvement in what's going on, just to find out who's running for office, who's going to be our leaders, and let's get people informed about it. Pastor, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Man, real excited about what David was telling me about what you guys did. You did a Meet the Candidate night and actually invited people out. What spurred all this on?
Well, I'm a part of a little pastoral alliance here in Camden, Arkansas, and we were just talking. One of the pastors wanted to just give an opportunity to meet the candidates, and they had these around town for who knows how many years. And he said, I want to have one at our church. And so actually it was out in the parking lot, and they brought a trailer in and invited the candidates to come. And so they came and each would get, it was a local election here, judges and sheriffs and things like that. Anyways, they got up and spoke about themselves and kind of what they stood for. And I was sitting there listening to them, and they were talking about all of the economic issues, and I walked over to one of the pastors that was facilitating it, and I said, is anybody going to ask any questions because I have questions. And he said, well, I don't know. I guess we can try it. So he got up and said, at the end, said, if anybody would like to answer questions, we're going to open this thing up, and you can come up and answer questions if you'd like. And so they all looked around, and apparently that had never been done before.
Wow. So they could just come in, give their little spill, say whatever, and leave, and nobody challenges them or got them to clarify on other issues.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so they came back up there, and so I just feel like I just said, you know, economic issues are important, but I would like to ask a couple other questions. And so I asked their stance on abortion, you know, what they believed on abortion, and also if they could give me their definition of marriage. And so they began to answer, and anyways, you know, there really wasn't a whole lot of people at this event. And you know, the crazy thing was we're looking around and there's hardly anybody there. But what we didn't realize is the Camden news reporter was there, the newspaper reporter. And we kind of got done, and we actually had one of the candidates that was pro-life, and one of them that, you know, said it's just up to the parents to choose. And so he was obviously pro-choice. And so we kind of left and said, man, I really wish more people could hear this. And you know, we're really trying to make a difference in our community, but, you know, just more people didn't show up. Well, lo and behold, Monday morning comes out, and on the front page of the paper, it says, candidates answer questions Saturday. Wow. And so it was on the front paper. And you guys
didn't even know the newspaper was there, hadn't planned to ask questions. The Lord prompted you to do it. You went and did it, asked questions, and then it ends up on the front page of the paper. Did they actually talk about some of the things that they were asked and answered?
They did. They kind of wrote on the paper what their responses to the questions, and they were, you know, just what they believe. One of them, you know, most all of them, you know, said that marriage was, you know, they believe between a man and a woman, but one of them in the race, he believed in pro-choice. And so, you know, I think that was an issue that a lot of people would like to know that really we had no access to in a local election. You can't. Sometimes it's hard to find out.
Oh man, it's so much harder to get a voter's guide or whatnot on the local elections, because you just normally don't have a group that's going out and getting the information and doing the research. So yeah, it is a lot harder to find out. Yeah, I bet no one would have known if you hadn't asked those questions.
Right, and it was encouraging because you know, I'm a pastor in a small town, and sometimes you don't feel like you can. You know, what can you do to be a part? And I've been involved in church and been a youth pastor for a lot of years, and have really not been real involved in the political, you know, arena a whole lot, but was still able to, you know, make a difference just by asking questions and being involved. And
man, that's huge, Jake. I mean, that's what all of us need to realize, is that no matter where we are, we can make a difference. God can use us in that arena to influence the culture, and just think of the hundreds of thousands of other pastors and church members and others out there that could do exactly what you did, and thereby make have a big impact and make a difference in their community as well. It absolutely can be done. It should inspire others to do exactly the same thing, and I hope people will listen to this program and then share it with their friends and family and get them active and get other pastors in their community active as well. We got to take a very quick break. We'll be back in a moment right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Shortly after the American Revolution, America had become the envy of the world. It still remains a wonder of the modern world as 219 years later, America has become the longest ongoing constitutional republic in the history of the world. What was the foundation upon which our founding fathers established this great nation? According to John Adams, the foundation was Christianity. John Adams declared, "The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. Now I will avow that I then believed and now believe that those general principles of Christianity are as eternal and immutable as the existence and attributes of God." According to founding father John Adams, it was the principles of Christianity which formed the foundation for American government.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today is Pastor Jake Kinnamon. He's a pastor in Camden, Arkansas, that just simply asked some questions at a candidate forum, got involved, spread the word, and it had an impact on the election. You can do the same thing in your community. It's exciting to see, Pastor. I mean, this is exactly what we'd like to see more of, and people getting involved and paying attention to who's running, asking the right questions, and then spreading the word so that other citizens can know exactly who the people are that are going to stand for righteousness in that office. And for you guys, it didn't stop at just asking the questions at that forum. Even on Facebook and things like that could help get the word out. You guys continued to discuss this, and more people were able to get informed about who to go vote for, and it had an impact on the elections.
Absolutely. We started just posting each candidate's response on there on our pages, and people were sharing it in their groups. And thank God, we were just really pleased that the man that was running for our judge here that was pro-life, he got in there. And so we were just real happy about that.
And that's fantastic. That's how the system should work. Not only did you make a difference there, you're making a difference right now with the hundreds of thousands of people listening to you that we pray will go home and do the exact same thing. It's really good encouragement for all of us to know you can still have an impact on this thing. A lot of times people will just kind of assume, especially, I come from a small town too, especially in small towns, you just kind of think, well, we're not in the big city. Our people are good, and everybody running for office is going to be good. And you don't realize there are major differences between the people even running for local office out there. And I'll tell you, man, they may even say in response to a question like that on a local office deal, well, that doesn't have anything to do with the office I'm running for. But first of all, it does. It tells you a lot about their worldview. And secondly, they may be the next one running for the state legislature. And then it has a whole lot to do with their job. So you're doing exactly right. I think it's a great example, and we're thrilled that you'd come on and share it with us. And the fact that you guys got those results. How about after the election? Did people, were they encouraged and felt like, hey, this works, we need to get involved next time around as well?
So, actually, the Meet the Candidates, we're having another Meet the Candidates meeting for this election on the 4th, and they've been promoting, and this time they're putting it on there. We will be asking questions. So it kind of raised the bar. So I'm kind of hoping that they, some of them won't, kind of not show up being scared of the questions, but we're just want to take it and get the information out there so that these local guys, these local people running, will be the right ones. And if they decide to run for the higher office later, then, it'll bring blessing to our nation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hoping.
That's exactly right. How'd the folks in your church respond to all this?
Oh, they were just excited. A lot of them didn't really know. People that have been in the community for a long time, they were just kind of like, oh, they're pretty good. They just kind of hearsay because they've been here a long time and didn't really know what they believed.
Yeah.
And so they just really saw the importance of asking questions.
That's
and finding out. So
that's great. I love it, man. Well, God bless you. We're blessed that you came and shared it with us, and hope you do the same thing. This forum you're about to have will have the same kind of impact, and folks will get informed and just keep sharing and encouraging other people to do the same thing. We're going to do it from right here at WallBuilders Live. So thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Back in a moment with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall, in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty, and Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Very special thanks to Pastor Jake Kinnamon. Man, that's a great example. Hope folks at home were really listening to that. Hope you'll share it with others. Back here with David Barton. Now, David, I on off the air when we were on the break there, he was telling me he got his the standard letter from the Americans United for Separation Church of State, Barry Lynn, threatening pastors not to touch this stuff with a 10-foot pole and stay away from politics and blah 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 blah. And here he is, for the first time, really involved. So we had an interesting conversation about that. I said, they love threatening everybody, but we just can't seem to get the government to actually sue anybody so we can win.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing is that letter, I mean, it's a stock letter that goes out every year. I think what they tell me, 170,000 pastors get this every year. And it's basically threatening them with instant, Pastor, if you put out a voter's guide in your church, you might be sued. Well, Pastor, you might be sued because you wear brown shoes. I mean, right. Pastor, you might be sued because you drive a Ford truck rather than Chevy. Pastor, you might be sued because you're alive. So it's a huge intimidation thing, and for pastors who don't know any different, it's all about the might. I mean, the sky might fall. We might get hit by a meteor. We might have an earthquake in the middle of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, it's all might.
Well, and you know how we used to take it and mark out everything that was not true, and there's not much left besides the greeting and the sincerely. But I mean, they're using this. The IRS did this political activities referral committee. Man, it sounds like something from a communist government. But that's what he's threatening them with. And you're exactly right. It's all threat. And but fortunately, guys like Pastor Jake are kind of like the Black Robe Regiment, man. They're not intimidated at all.
And by the way, it's interesting that he mentioned that pro-life judge one, because he started asking questions. That was one of the things I'd learned at that seminar was if you want to know where your candidates are on every issue, what they're going to do with government powers or anything else, ask them about the life issue. Because if they're wrong on life, they'll be wrong on everything else. As Sam Adams, the founder, said, the right to life is the first of the inalienable rights. And if you don't get the first one right, you won't get the second, third, fourth. Once you get off track, you're on the wrong road, and you'll get stuff wrong all along the way. And so the fact that Jake went back and asked them about life, and nobody had done that, it's a local election. They can't do anything with abortion. Yeah, you know what? But that tells you their whole governmental view. And so he asked that question, and not only did they get that judge elected, they got so many others elected. And Jake went around to other pastors and said, hey, guys, you just need to know where these guys are. And this is a really important thing because what Jake did was inform others about the position of the candidates. And candidates have learned about that. And, you commented that next forum they may not show up because they may not want people to know where they are. Man, that's a great point that if they don't want you to know what they believe, they're probably pretty dangerous to have in office.
Yeah.
And there's a number of states that we're working in right now where we have produced voters' guides in those states. They're all constitutionally legal. We've had the attorneys check them, and they can be used by churches, etc. And the reason we did it is in one of the states where we did one of these voters' guides, there's a group in the state that has always put out voters' guides, and they always send the surveys to the candidates, tell us your position on these issues, and 70% of the candidates did not respond. And so the voters' guide, when you look at that state, 70% of them says did not respond, did not. How do you make a comparison and know where somebody is when they won't answer you? So what we do with our voters' guides is we don't care whether they answer or not. We go on their website and take their positions. We go to the voting record, take their positions. We go to the interviews they've had on TV. We will take the issues that are asked about, but we don't wait for them to answer. We actually, fruits are what you want. Actions speak louder than words. And so those voters' guides are now getting distributed across, and so people can't hide forever behind the, well, I don't want to answer that because they might find out where I stand. I mean, they have records. And so that's the cool thing about what Jake did as well, is he got that word out for folks. And there's a lot of those guides out there. I mean, if you want to go to ChristianVoterGuide.com or NationalBlackRobeRegiment.com, whatever, there's a number of voting guides up for a number of states, including Arkansas. that'll tell you where folks are on issues.
You know, David, it's too late this year to do it, but I would strongly encourage those folks on a local level to start putting together local voter guides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get folks together, a couple churches together. You know, even just 2 or 3 people can do it at the local level, because it does help. I mean, he's right. It's sometimes it's hard to find out where those local folks. It's often hard to find out what those local folks stand for. So, hey, be the one to lead the charge and just get that good information out to your neighbors.
And just be aware, it is not illegal to tell people where public officials stand on the issues. That's part of their campaign. That's like saying free speech is illegal, or you don't have a right to know what they're going to do when they vote. I mean, yes, you do. That's all public information stuff. So don't ever let anybody like Barry Lynn talk you into a corner that, oh, you can't do voters. Yes, you can. I mean, those voter guides, if they've been approved by the attorneys and they're neutral. Now, if you're doing a voters guide that puts out there a complete agenda you support and endorses candidates based on that, that's a little tricky. But if you're just putting out there questions, where do you stand on abortion? Where do you stand on marriage? Where do you stand on rights of conscience? And you get answers to that, or you find answers to that and give it to people in your congregation. You're not telling them how to vote. They're going to vote what they want based on what they see. If you do something like that, you're completely legal. So ignore Barry Lynn. He would love for you to believe what he says, because that way you want to inform your people on the issues, and that way they won't go vote, and that way he'll still have lots of power left.
You're not only completely legal, you're providing a very valuable service to your community,
right,
and helping to save our country, because that's the fundamental part of it, is holding our public servants accountable. So special thanks to Pastor Jake for doing that in Arkansas. You do it in your community, and together we can help restore this constitutional republic. Thanks for listening today to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.